What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some r/AmIThe butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. I cannot express how much it really does help out our channel and helps me out, and I just can't thank you enough for everything you do already. So thank you so much. And with that being said, let's crack straight on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from Vacay Throwaway. Am I the arsehole for not trying to have a motherly relationship with my stepkids anymore? I have 5 kids, 3 from a previous relationship, 2 from my current marriage. I married my current husband back in 2015 when the kids were all around 13, 12 and 9. In that time, my kids have tried to get to know their step-siblings and become close. However, my husband's kids have resisted. My husband and I have never pushed family time, and when we took the kids to therapy, the steplings revealed that they didn't see me as a parent and never would. This hurt, but I tried to make an effort to at least be there when needed. The behaviour didn't let up, and eventually my kids and I gave up on having a close bond with them. My husband takes his kids on separate outings and trips from my kids and myself, since the steplings usually make things difficult otherwise. He'll still join me and my kids on our outings though. Spring break is coming up, and with things going better for my state, I decided to take the kids, minus the steps, on a trip to see my parents in my home country in Europe, country with few restrictions. The trip was pretty easy to plan as the kids are remote from school and my family has property to stay on, so there was little worry for hotel and stay. My husband will be staying with the steplings during the week and a half we'll be gone, as he has some PTO from work. He'll be taking them to his parents' house in Utah. His kids were very unhappy about this and said the trip was unfair and that they shouldn't have to stay here in the US while their siblings get to go to Europe with me. They sat down with us and pretty much demanded to be invited to come. I understand that with restrictions comes some boredom from being inside and have limited access. However, I explained that their siblings did not want them to come. They asked how I felt, and I told them quite honestly that in the past 6 years they've gone out of their way to make me feel like I wasn't family, and from that came my lack of interest in building a motherly relationship with them, and that I'd feel better without them there. They called me a bitch and said that this was an opportunity to bond with them that I was throwing away. My husband is fine with me taking my kids to Europe and has told me to brush off the comments. However, I can't help feeling like I was harsh in telling them that I didn't want to have a motherly relationship. The steplings won't talk to me and are asking their mum to take full custody, which I know hurts my husband more than he lets on. Am I the arsehole for not trying to have that relationship with them anymore? Edit, my children's ages are 10, 16 and 13. His children are 16 and 17. I'm currently expecting child number 6, not necessarily relevant, but there's the dynamic. The kids don't know yet. I absolutely do not hate my stepkids at all. Please don't think otherwise. As stated before, we tried therapy, one-on-one and family, for 4 years before we backed off. And we're going to start with a comment straight away, because this comment did a bit of research into some of the comments as well. So Bert the Nerd said, a full load of not the arsehole. They don't want a bond, but only the nice trip. The first rule of any step or remarried relationship is they are voluntary. You made your efforts, they did not want it, so these are the consequences. The kids are not assholes for not making bonds, see above, but for trying to force going to the trip. Edit, and for this, and quotes, the step siblings won't talk to me and are asking their mum to take full custody. And then says, nope, they do not deserve the trip in any single way. Edit 2, thank you very much for many upvotes, just found some comments from OP, and one specific is crucial for me. I quote the whole text. And then says the quote, the altercation happened when my husband's son was 15 and my daughter was 13. After this we tried therapy again. He however said he'd do it again in a heartbeat and refused to apologise. We tried grounding him, but he just got angry and began to break things, and we pulled back after things calmed down. They didn't have to prove anything, they don't owe me anything. I cared less about how they treated me as a mother and more about how they treated me as a person. I was asked not to come to graduations, soccer games, dances, etc. I just thought this was another one of those situations. I still tried, I swear. I gave them money when they asked. I offered rides to friends' houses. I tried to be there. They didn't want me there at all. And then Bert the Nerd says, yep, now it is not the arsehole beyond any reasonable doubts. And JetPix13 says, not the arsehole. They were perfectly happy to have separate lives until you planned a family trip to Europe. That's clearly the motivating factor. Unless they show you they are willing to do other things together, they just want a free trip. Info, what are the stepkids' ages? And we already know the ages from a couple of the edits. And Sunday Shay says, yeesh, this is difficult. On the one hand, you have the kids who seem like they just want a trip to Europe. On the other hand, you basically told them to politely go fuck off. I'm going to go with not the arsehole. I'm assuming they are not small children, but teenagers at least. They're framing it as you have the opportunity to make them like you. They're saying that they want you to buy their affection with a trip to Europe and then dance monkey for them and try to create a bond. When you told them how you felt, they retaliated by calling you names and asking their mum to take full custody. So because you refused to host them at your parents' house in Europe, they want nothing to do with their father ever again. Seems harsh and extreme. Maybe encourage your husband to work hard on his relationship with them and just shoot for being civil and cordial with them when they're older. Can't make love grow where the seeds aren't planted. And now I'm going to turn this one straight to you guys. Do you think like the stepkids are just after a trip to Europe, or do you think there's more to this? Do you think if she did take them to Europe that, you know, they could possibly bond, or do you think it's all just about that trip? Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments below. And our next story is from Confused Alpaca 937. Am I the arsehole for not telling my in-laws I was born deaf? So I was born nearly completely deaf, 80% in one ear, 60% in the other, and spoke like a deaf person until I was around 8. However, after multiple surgeries, adenoids removed and grommets put in, and lots of speech therapy, you could never tell now. I'm still around 20% deaf in one ear and around 40 in the other, but hey, I get by fine now. I've mentioned it in passing to my SO, but never really went into detail, and the in-laws have no idea. So I recently went to my in-laws with my SO for the week. COVID rules allowed in my country, and to say they're tongue-in-cheek is an understatement, and after a few drinks, 2 sister-in-laws bring up a running joke where they speak like deaf people, who knows why, and even do the flailing arms gesture to mock disabled people. Everyone finds this hilarious. I just kind of sit there awkwardly and smile along. This goes on for about an hour. Now the next day, note, I also wear glasses with a fairly high prescription. Sister-in-law walks in and asks to try my glasses, then announce, fuck, you are blind, then hands them back. Now I've had that exact conversation thousands of times, so don't take offense, but joked, yeah, I really drew the short straw as a kid. Being deaf and blind, I was screwed. Sister-in-law's eyes then go wide, and I explain my past. Sister-in-law then asks if I heard what they were saying last night. I say, well, yeah, I was sat next to you. Obviously I heard. She goes on to say how I should have said something. They never would have joked in front of me knowing I was deaf. I say I couldn't have cared less. I've had it my whole life, but it then made the rest of the trip fairly awkward. Mother-in-law then said that they feel really bad now and I should have spoke up, and SO agrees, and they think I purposely let them continue to mock me just to make them feel bad. That if I didn't say anything, then I shouldn't have said anything at all, and that me saying something the next day is petty and me trying to make them feel bad. But I genuinely wasn't that bothered. I'm used to it. It's more awkward to say something, not to mention the speaking really loud and slow once you tell them. I know this is a minor am I the arsehole. Should I have said something or nothing? You are absolutely 100% right to say something. You were just explaining your past. It's on them for being shitty people, for mocking deaf people. That's on them. So what they're basically saying is, because you're there, that is awkward. But if you wasn't there, they can still take the piss out of deaf people, and that's totally fine. How is that? How is that still not shitty behaviour? There or not, they're still mocking deaf people. Oh god, man. Don't get me started. In future, maybe they should just stand at the door with a notepad asking people to disclose their medical fucking history. So, we might be mocking certain people today. So if you could just disclose your medical history and tell me any issues you have so we could just avoid those ones and we won't take the piss out of you for tonight. But when you're out of the room, we might just do it then. I mean, come on now, people. Seriously. But Magjoy says, your SO knew. They should have said something before it got that far. Not the arsehole. To which the Teal Bandit replies and says, yeah, or they could just not make fun of disabled people. Either works really. And Caricatoria says, we were only arseholes because you didn't stop us. Ah yes, gaslighting at its finest. Not the arsehole. And Wicked Lucky says, not the arsehole. Whether they knew or not doesn't change the inappropriateness of their jokes, and they want to blame you. And Mrs. Bat says, the arseholes here are your SO's entire family. They showed their arses. They don't have no respect for people with disabilities, and that includes you. They should feel terrible for what they said. It was ignorant and frankly disgusting. Terrible people hate being recognised as terrible people and will blame anyone but themselves for their terrible behaviour. And FemNB says, not the arsehole, but I do wonder why you're with someone who doesn't speak up for disabled people. While it isn't your job to educate people, if anyone in that family actually cared about not being ableist, someone would have said something. It's not your fault they're ignorant, and then instead of taking it as a learning moment, they instead decided to blame you and still believe that their words aren't wrong as long as someone of those groups doesn't hear. What other minorities does this behaviour extend to? And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation, and would you have stood up in front of that family and said something or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And our next story comes from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for having saved up a lot of money and not telling my wife? My parents got into a car crash and passed away when I was like 18. Mostly everything was left to me except for a few things given to different family members. I decided to open up a bank account and save up money for when I might need it. I also added more money from each of my paychecks. When I met my now wife, I didn't tell her about the money. I instead told her not to worry about having to pay for an emergency. I would have it covered. Now that we're getting married, we're doing well. We just had a kid some months ago and something came up unexpectedly, so we're running short on money. I told her I'd figure it out and to not stress about it. She became suspicious about how I was able to pull it off. I repeatedly told her not to worry and that at the end of the day it didn't matter. She wasn't satisfied with that answer. She went asking around and one of my cousins told her about me saving money after my parents' accident. Nobody knows how much I saved, so my cousin probably thought it was a small amount. My wife is now upset about it. I honestly don't know what the issue is. I could have used the money for anything I wanted, but instead I'm using it for my family. So am I the arsehole for saving money without my wife knowing? Now this isn't the worst one where we've seen like a spouse keeping money from the other and hiding money from the other. There's been a lot worse ones on here, but I found this one quite interesting because it was just so like such a light one in some ways, but I think it just shows trust issues in the relationship. You're not trusting someone who you should be able to trust with everything, someone you're hopefully going to spend the rest of your life with, and you're not willing to give them that information, which is going to obviously cause suspicions between you two. Like if I was in that position, if I was in wife's position, I'd be thinking, where is that money coming from? What is he up to? Is he in the mafia? What's he doing, you know? It could be anything. You could be getting that money from anywhere. And this is just from a personal viewpoint. I think if you do get married, you should be able to trust that person with pretty much everything. And you should be able to, you know, let them know that, you know, you're not part of the mafia. You're not getting random money from some random place. And you just saved money from when your parents passed away and you've been saving ever since. I think it's just the whole trust thing that really gets to me. And I think if you do get married, you should be able to trust that person with everything. But maybe that's just me being naive. But that's the way I feel. But Reen Visage says, saving money, good. Keeping sole access to it, fine. Hiding financial information from a spouse, really bad move. So a soft, you're the arsehole. And my username is this says, you're the arsehole. It's never been good to have secrets in marriage. If she was just your girlfriend, it would have been a totally different issue. But she's your wife, your other half, your equal. What if something would happen to you and she didn't know about the funds and she needed them? Keeping a secret like that can really break trust. It makes you look like you don't trust her and you're hiding things. How would you feel if she did that to you? And RA Throwaway says, I get not telling random people, dude, but this is your fucking wife, your life partner. You say you'd be thrilled if the situation was reversed, but I doubt many spouses would take this news well. It's not like you started saving, it's that you had assets that you kept completely hidden from your wife, who had just been under an enormous amount of stress because she thought you were equal partners in your marriage, because she trusted you to be as transparent about your finances as she is with hers. If the person I married all of a sudden had money they'd never once mentioned to me, I would assume there was something seriously shady going on, and your refusal to accept their point of view doesn't bode well. You're the arsehole. And Glaxon Flux says, it's not about saving money your wife doesn't know about, it's about being shady and mysterious when she asks how you covered up for an emergency. You're acting like you saved the day, so she should just shut up and be grateful instead of asking questions. You're the arsehole. And finally, Current Expression says, you're the arsehole, just try looking at it from her point of view. You suddenly came up with a bunch of money and refused to tell her where it came from. It just looked highly suspicious. If I were her, I'd be upset too. And now I turn this one to you guys. What would you do in this situation if you had an emergency and suddenly your partner sprang some money that you didn't know where it came from? Would you be suspicious about it, or would you just accept it and go, yeah, that's great, thank you for that, and not ask any further questions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And our next story is from Terry Deer. Would I be the arsehole if I bought the drink a 4-year-old wanted and drank it in front of him? I'm babysitting kids for this rich family back in my hometown. It's 2 boys, 5 and 4, and a girl not even a year old yet. I've been babysitting here since the older boy was 1 and witnessed the kids grow more and more spoiled and entitled, especially the younger. If I don't allow him to do something dangerous or scold him for doing something bad, he threatens to get his dad to fire me, which he would obviously fail at, but that's just the general approach of this kid so early on. Now, one time I had to accompany the boys and their teenage sister to the store. She was sent to buy some groceries the parents needed, and the boys begged to go along, so the parents asked me to help the sister while at the store with the boys. Anyways, of course they started nagging us for treats, and we would tell them, no, we only have money for groceries, we aren't buying anything else. Until the 4-year-old took a drink off the shelf, and when we told him he can't have it, he licked it all over the bottle. We couldn't leave it like that, so his sister agreed to buy it for him, off of her allowance, and to buy something for his brother to be even. I have to add, they had the exact same drink at home, along with a ton of other snacks. They'd only have to wait like 15 minutes to get back home and have some. This really frustrated me because sure, they're just kids, but this is the way that they'll learn they can always get their way by misbehaving. Obviously I didn't do anything other than scolding them. Not my kids, not my money. But ever since then I've been thinking about this case, and I think if this or something similar happened again, I'd buy the drink/snack, and as soon as we're out of the store, I'd drink/eat it. Maybe just throw it in the trash. Anything to not let the kid get what he wants with this, but also not leave an item covered in germs on the shelf. I think I might be an arsehole if I did this since A, they're just kids, B, they're not my kids, parenting them is not my job, C, I guess it's not the nicest to let them hope he'll have what he wants and then take it from him. But I also kind of think it might be justified because it might just teach him a lesson he will remember, and I've not actually even been taking anything away from him that's rightfully his. Now, I could go with like a you're the arsehole for doing that because I don't think it's the right thing to do in this situation. Sure, you could say it might teach him a lesson, but also you might be teaching him a wrong for doing a wrong, if you get what I mean. Like, he might just learn that what you've done to him is acceptable behavior so he can go and do that to someone else too. But I'm absolutely not excusing their behavior either. It's obviously shitty behavior, but surely there's got to be a better way to deal with this. Maybe talk to the parents. I don't know what your working relationship is like with them, but maybe you could say like, you could report to the parents what they're being like and what their behavior is, and it's getting worse by the day. You know, you could be doing them a favor. And again, I don't know what the relationship is. You might not be able to make those reports to them. They might be shitty people as well, but I don't know that. I'm just saying, like, if I was in that position and I was dealing with these kids and their behavior was starting to get worse, I think I would have to report it. Maybe at the risk of my job, maybe, who knows. But I think it might be the best thing to do in this situation. And again, I might be totally wrong. And I can't say I would definitely do that because I don't know what your relationship is with these people. But I'm going to go with a controversial everyone sucks here because obviously the kids suck for being little turds. And I think if you was to do that, you'll be showing them not equally bad behavior, but you'll be showing them bad behavior, which they might go and repeat in the future. So I think you might suck for that if you did do this. And I think there's just better ways of dealing with it. However, I may be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times before, but yeah, right 228 says you're the arsehole. You could take it and say, since you licked it, you have to buy it, but I'm not going to let you have it. As soon as we get home, I'm telling mum what happened and we're going to put it away, toss it, whatever. And Mortimer says, you're the arsehole. You shouldn't do this for all the reasons you list. Scoring off a 4-year-old because his behavior frustrates you is gross and immature. And Aaron says, you're the arsehole. Intentionally trying to upset the children in that way when you're paid to look after them is not okay. I understand the instinct not to let the child manipulate you though. I would have bought the bottle and not given it to him until we were home. And Stranger Danger says, everyone sucks here. You're right, they're not your kids, so parenting them isn't your job. However, their behavior is unacceptable and needs to stop. What you should do is first talk to the parents. What my babysitter used to do was write up behavior reports and then give it to my parents. That way, if I misbehaved, my parents would know and, in an ideal circumstance, punish me. Can't say that the parents will do the same, but it's much better to leave the parenting to the parents. Everyone sucks here because that should be your first course of action before trying anything what you propose. If you end up doing what you're thinking about doing, just make it very clear to the kids that even though you're buying the drink, they won't be getting it. And Empty Pomegranate says, this is one of those things where yes, you would be the asshole, but I honestly don't think that's too bad of a thing. But I think you should alter your plan. I'd buy the item they lick, then only give it to the parents when they arrived and explain what happened. That way the kid isn't rewarded for the bad behaviour, but is also not technically punished at the same time. You can leave that up to the parents. I'd explain what happened and tell them that you couldn't leave the contaminated item there and thought you should just hand it to them and let them decide what to do about it. It also sets a precedent that you won't tolerate the behaviour and will report it to the parents. And now I turn this one to you guys. What would you do in that situation? Do you think OP was right for what they was going to do? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now once again guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories, and if you did, you know what to do. Hit that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. As I always say, it hugely helps out our channel and I cannot express that enough. Even commenting makes a huge difference to the channel too. So thank you for everything you do towards the channel. It does mean the world to me, and I will see you, hopefully if you enjoyed, in the next one. Take care guys. Much love.